Thanks, Michelle. I was saying to Michelle before, I was always so impressed by people's bios, and then I realised you have to write them yourself. So, I mean, I guess I'm kind of impressed by mine, but I think like the key thing that I was told not to say was that I'm not a librarian. That was the advice from Anna, who you all know is like a super librarian. I definitely haven't decided what I am yet in my life, but I've had a lot of opportunities to do a lot of interesting things. So I'm going to talk to you today about something that I think was really interesting, and I hope that you'll find that it's interesting as well. As you heard, I was a teacher in a past career, so I am totally fine with being interrupted if you would like to do so. Otherwise, yeah, we can wait till the end. But to begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we're on today, and I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land of the houses that are in the Cawley collection. Now, I'm interested to know if any of you have used or heard of the Cawley collection. Oh, this is, I mean, it's not a trick question, it's good, because now I don't feel so bad about telling you the story of the Cawleys and the collection, but thank you to those who have used it. So I'm going to jump around in time a little bit with this collection. My colleague and I, Chenoa, we wrote this paper and the presentation, and we're also fortunate to co-curate an exhibition at the State Library in 2019. We kind of think of ourselves as the Bradburys of this particular collection, or Bradbury, and I'm like a terrible sports person, so I'm hoping that somebody in here can make that analogy work. But we were really like the last people in a long line of people, both inside the library and volunteers and community, who worked with this collection to create meaning. But to give some context to where the Cawley collection came into State Library, it was 1995. It came through the estate of Frank Cawley. Frank and Eunice Cawley, husband and wife, they had a business in the 1960s and 70s. They had many businesses. They were very entrepreneurial. But one of their businesses for about 10 years was taking photographs of people's houses. So they would drive the streets of the Greater Brisbane area and up north, about as far as Bundaberg, and into in Queensland, inwards, eastwards, westwards, sorry, as I orientate myself. They would go from town to town, suburb to suburb. They would set up, he had a pink Cadillac, she had a Bedford van that was converted to a dark room. He would drive the streets, one hand on the wheel, the other hand out the window, taking photographs of the houses. He would dump the reels that he took back to Eunice. She would develop them on wherever the street was that she was parked in. And then they would have a team of salespeople if the town was big enough, or they would do it themselves, and they'd go back to the houses and they would sell the photographs back to the homeowners. So in 1995, when Frank passed, Eunice had passed in the late 80s, we kind of got wind through kind of a long-time friend of the State Library, Doug Spowett, that there was this amazing collection of photographs just sitting under Frank's house. And so one of the, I don't know what his title would have been, a field librarian? Does that make sense? I don't know if that's what he was called. Anyway, his name was Niles. He went out to visit Frank, and under the house there were just boxes and boxes of photographs. He had no real idea how many there were. And that kind of started the conversation, and through Frank's estate, those photographs eventually came across to the State Library. So we now know that there were about 61,000 photographs that came, and I guess the interesting thing is that those were the photographs that didn't actually sell. So it's likely that in that 10-year period they might have taken closer to 250 or 300,000 photographs that did sell. They came how they came, which is to say in boxes, not in boxes, in piles, waterlogged, everything that you can imagine, no order, whatever. So this year, and I checked yesterday how this collection's going, so as you can see, we now have addresses for 33,000 of those photographs, which is about just over 50%. And those, I'd say those, probably about 27,000 of those addresses have happened in the last 11 months or so. So there's a couple of things here that I'm going to have to shoot back and forth in time a little bit, but particularly the stories is something that I'll spend a little bit of time on as we go through. No questions so far? Okay, that's good. So if you are into the catalogue, I understand that this is like an important thing because of those stories, of those tags, of those images, we are harvesting them from the Callie Explorer and we're reattaching them, ingesting, whatever the word is, back into the catalogue. So this particular address is my address, my house. I found my house in the collection. And those tags are my tags that I contributed as an anonymous user. The Callie Explorer doesn't require you to sign up to add those tags. You can do that basic level of description without signing in. To add a story or to upload a photo, that does require you to sign in. So I think my colleagues were very excited that we didn't just have this, I guess, a crowdsourced tool or a microsite that sat just to the side of the collection. We're closing the loop of all of that data that's being contributed by the community and by keen employees like myself. So we're going back in time now, so 2020 backwards. But to do that, I have to talk to you a little bit about the collection. And so these are just some of the original materials that we do have in our collection. And I would like to point out in particular, I'm going to just try something here. Is that working? Great. So this is a spool. I'd never heard the word spool before this. I don't know if it's a common word or not. You can nod or not. But a spool for us is this is Frank's writing. So he would have written this possibly while he was driving. So as he was taking the photographs, as he was driving, he was taking notes. And of course, the notes were an important part of his business model because he needed the salespeople to get back to the house that had that photograph. And so he would take notes, where he started in a street and where he finished, where he turned. He didn't have a very predictable pattern, partly because he drove a Cadillac. And even in the 1960s, a Cadillac was quite a large car, as you would imagine, for the streets. And so there are plenty of parts, particularly in inner city Brisbane, where we just don't have photographs because we believe he just couldn't get his car down the street. But also if he just couldn't turn it. So there's some instances where he takes photographs on one side of the street, but he doesn't come back down the other side of the street because we speculate that he wasn't able to turn that car around. So those spools, they became really important for an early volunteer at the State Library, John Wilson. And so he used those spools to start to put this collection into some kind of order. So you'll see there also, just here, this is the back of a photograph. So when Eunice, when she printed those photographs in the back of the van, she would stamp them. And so she only had A to Z, so it definitely repeats after a while. And I think she only goes to 50, possibly. But by using the back of those photographs and the spool cards, John Wilson, over many years, was able to start to put this collection in some kind of order. To do that, he relied on, and I guess to situate all of this, and it's certainly before my time, definitely, there was no Google Earth, there was no kind of internet searching or anything like that. He was using Refidexes, and what he would do is enlist postmen and women in different places, and he would give them photographs or he would give them addresses, and he would ask them to just kind of check one or two houses at a time to see if the taxonomy or the sorting that he was doing was making sense. So it was a bit of a slow process, as you would imagine. But during this time, Google Maps did become a thing. And so when that happened, that process did speed up a little bit as well. Just quickly, the other things that are there. Frank and Eunice, their business model, they had like an upgrade package. So you could just buy the photograph, or you could put it in a little greeting card, and I've got a picture of this soon, into a fridge calendar as well that would tell you the weather, I think. Has this little barometer thing on it. this is actually one of their flash units. So their company was called the Pan American Photographic Company. So you can, I feel like you can start to get a bit of an idea about Frank and Eunice with the Cadillac and the Pan American Company and the Bedford van and everything else. So this is one of their calendars. This is one of the original ones. This one is in our collection. And everybody older than me, anyway, gets very excited about this thing, which is I'm told, helped you to kind of tell the weather when you were inside. It changed colour depending on what was happening outside as well. And if you really like the look of this, and if you go to the Cawley Explorer, you can actually pick a house, and our colleagues, Jeff and Mitchell, who I'll talk about in a minute, have made a 2020 calendar, so you can print it back out and have it on your fridge again. Okay. I don't know what I was going to... I just like this house. It's kind of... I was going to say something really important, but I've definitely forgotten. I think during this project, and I guess this project, or the Cawley Explorer, is situated within a larger effort, which is the exhibition and the 23 years of working with the collection. But we were fortunate to work with Jeff and Mitchell to really iteratively, and I guess to use some of the vernacular that I've heard here over the last 3 days, we used an agile approach to develop the Cawley Explorer. It was very quick and loops and kind of weekly sprints. And if you really, I'm clearly not going to do a good job of diving really deep into coding or anything like that, but Jeff and Mitchell do, and that Vimeo link is them for 40 minutes talking about all of the things that they did to build this. And if you really like it, it's on GitHub, so you can have the whole piece of software and you can do whatever you like with it, which I heard somebody else talking about today, putting stuff out there. So it's out there and it's yours. So this is what it looks like. And this is the live view. Oh, it's not the live view, it's a PowerPoint, but I did it this morning, so it's kind of live. But what is happening there in the background, these are probably the last 100 or so photographs that have been tagged in real time. So that's always changing as people are continuing to geolocate images. And so just scrolling down the front page, I guess you can get a bit of a sense of the different parts of the website, so the ability to tag or describe the collection, the geolocation of those images, and this really is my favourite part. No, not this part. This was the part where the internet wasn't working very well. The next part is the story part. This is the bit where our community and people who have owned houses or lived in houses or rented houses or knew about houses have kind of shared back their stories of their time with those houses. I guess we were really scared of the architects as we were doing this, and particularly the heritage architects. If you're a heritage architect, I'm sorry, but you are a scary kind of person, particularly when it comes to a conversation about a controlled vocabulary of a Queensland style. And so they were very keen, obviously, for us to use their controlled vocabulary for this. And we were really keen to make it as accessible as possible. So there was a bit of a tension there between that. And I guess one of the ways that we worked through the description of the houses was both by internally as well as, I guess, with stakeholders and community, sending them out 10 minutes. I said I was going to be quick. We sent them out kind of early versions of this so that we could see how they were describing things in the pictures. We also, now we're going just quickly through the website, you can do this yourself. Places, so you can navigate by suburb. The suburbs come directly from the spool, which is Frank's kind of original data keeping of what he was doing. And so what you can see there in that live view at the top is that every one of those orange dots is a photo that has been geolocated by someone in the public. The bigger dots kind of represent the clusters of the spools. So Annalee happens to have 50 spools, or about, I think it's about 3,600 photographs or so in that suburb. You can speculate about why they have so many left over. Possibly nobody bought them, possibly they were doubles, different things like that. Tags. So we understood really early, and we worked collaboratively with our colleagues in metadata services to understand what they were looking for from a tool like this, and it came to, it was a description, obviously, and I learned for the first time in my life the word concatenate, which has definitely become one of my favourite words, and so I will not explain to you, obviously, because you're all nodding what it means, but it was exciting to me to think about how these tags would then be put into the collection record, and you can see that back on in the collection records that have been harvested. It's sentences, not in single tags. You may have noticed, and obviously I've picked photos I like, but the collection is, yes, it's about houses, but it's kind of like so much more than houses, right? Because Frank was indiscriminate in his photography. So if you were in the, you know, if there was a dog there, if there was a tree there, if it was raining, whatever, he took the photo because it was a volume business, we suspect, or we've kind of worked our way through it. So he didn't wait around for the perfect picture. Sometimes the houses aren't even really in the frame. And I guess like some of the really nice now, maybe not nice for Frank at the time, was that Eunice would write notes on the photographs. And you know, some of them are like, Frank, get it bloody in frame and stuff like this, and that's in the record. And I guess what's really nice about that, and you can't see it on this picture, is that we've got a set of tags of essentially Eunice's notes back to Frank that are on those photographs. So just a little bit more detail here. So this is I guess the geolocation section. You know, as people are navigating through, and there's a number of ways that they can navigate to find a house. Typically just at the suburb level is where they start, and that's what we have at the library as well, in the original collection. And then often what people will do, because they get addicted to this, is they make their way through streets or through suburbs, and they just knock off houses as they go along the spool. You'll see though that there's also this, just to the, I can use this again. Just here, show visually similar photos. We did, with Jeff and Mitchell, we did play around with machine learning a little bit to see what we could do to automate the process. We were, as you probably can guess, unhappy with the accuracy of the machine learning. But what we did was we pivoted together, and now we just serve similar photographs. So it's just a really nice lateral way of navigating through the collection. If you like this, maybe you'll like the look of this kind of stuff. And so you can see there, it's on this particular image, it's not doing an amazing job of capturing that detail in the roof, but generally it's pretty good. I've got to speed up here. You can go on the website. The stories though, the stories. This was the bit that kind of caught us by surprise. It was the bit that we really, well, Chenoa and I felt really strongly about. The librarians were so-so about people telling their stories, can I say? I said it. But it felt really important to us, because one of the things that we discovered along the way, and it was kind of hand in hand of working with the community, was the stories of people who lived in houses. And so whenever we talked about houses, we ended up talking about the people, the person, the people, the family, the grandchildren, whatever it was that lived in that house. And so we built in, well, it didn't even look like this. There was no stories tab, but it accidentally leaked online and through Channel 9 News about a week out from launching, which is, I guess, not accidental. It was embargoed, but Channel 9 ignored us in that. And so it went live and it wasn't ready, but immediately, that first night, thousands and thousands and thousands of hits started to happen, and hundreds of stories just immediately started coming in. So we, as quickly as we could, we visualised those story contributions and got it going. 5 minutes. Just, you know, some of the gold there in the story section. So really quickly, going backwards, this was the last prototype before the kind of the public version. So you can see we were working very quickly inside. We were sending it out, testing. This was just going to a spreadsheet, which was kind of collecting the information. Going back a step. This was the third version. This was just a proof of concept where the size of those dots represents the number of spools that were in the collection. So if you think about Annerley, which had the 50 spools, that's quite a large kind of dot. And this is a version where they were able to serve the photographs that were in each spool and connect it to that geographic location. Backwards, early kind of proof of concept that we were able to use the lat and long from the suburbs to start to geolocate that stuff. And this was the very first time we saw anything, which was really exciting at the time. So, a community. I've talked a lot about the technology, which was something I really wanted to avoid, but I've done it nonetheless. But these guys and a whole heap of kind of volunteers in Annerley Stevens, and this is a terrible photoshopping effort from the Courier Mail, but anyway. So these guys, Annerley Stevens History Group, they got wind somehow of the Corley collection and they started accessing it. And they were really interested in their local history, local houses, that kind of stuff. And I've purposefully included this terrible photo because they were so keen on the collection that they spent weeks and weeks in the John Oxley Library with a digital camera photographing the print photographs so that they could then go back out and distribute it. So way before we even got wind of digitising this thing, these guys were in there digitising it themselves so that they could distribute it to their community. And what their little local history group did was they made spreadsheets, they had photos, and they walked the streets for months and months and kept kind of a ledger. And it was their data, it was their ledger that helped us later, Jeff and Mitchell in particular, that clean set of data to kind of build what was to come. So I guess, you know, oh yeah, that's almost my last slide, so I'm going good. So I guess, you know, the reason I didn't really want to talk about technology was because for us, when we were thinking about this particular project, we weren't really worried about the technology because we'd seen what the community had done for 20 years with the collection and how they'd used it. So when we worked with Jeff and Mitchell to develop the Corley Explorer, it felt really safe in a way that it was just going to work because we were just kind of standing on the shoulders of the community that had tested and tried and got a really good response for it. So I thought, this is my house again, so I wanted to end here. And I was a really early contributor. This is the first house that I bought with my partner about 4 years ago. And I also have a dog which I'm really keen to bring into the library, but you can imagine the issues that I have convincing anybody to bring it in. So I thought the next best thing would be just to upload a picture of my dog to the Corley Explorer, and then hopefully it'll make its way into the catalogue at some stage. But I think just the story of this house, when I bought this house 4 years ago, I didn't know who the owners was. But through the Corley Explorer, it turns out that the owner, it was the brother of one of my colleagues at the State Library. And the only way that we were able to find that out was through the Corley Explorer. And so I think that experience, and he's added his story kind of after my story and added his photos after my photos. So I think for me, that all of the other stuff is good and the catalogue and whatever. But it's these stories that I think have really kind of resonated with us and also with the public as well. So that's it. Right on time.
Questions? Wow, lots of hands went up.
Give it away. Hi, I'm from Queensland, from Townsville.
Oh, great.
But I'll be using this this evening to have a look at my old houses.
Oh, good.
I'm wondering about the possibility of expanding the sources.
Yeah.
Because one of the things I do is go through a couple of even like Facebook groups where there's a wealth of personal photographic archives, like Lost Townsville, Lost Brisbane.
Yep. Lost Brisbane, I think lately he's just been taking the photos from the Corley Explorer and driving his traffic that way. But we are actually, I guess this is, anyway, we're working on a version 2.0, which I guess you could say is content agnostic in a way. So we want to kind of take the success of what this was and think about how to build a platform that allows communities or whoever to build a platform like this. So I think, Yeah, we're working on it, and I think we'll release something mid-year around it, if that helps. Awesome. The houses don't go to Townsville, unfortunately.
This time.
Hi, I wondered, you said that the photos, the collection of photos that weren't sold,
Yeah.
and I was just wondering, as a result of the success of the project, whether you'd got content or pictures of people who had bought pictures and you're able to retrospectively add to that collection.
Yeah, absolutely, but not nearly as many as you would think. So I would say, to my knowledge, maybe between 10 and 15 donations of photographs. Lots of memories, definitely, like lots of people, particularly on groups like Lost Brisbane, would talk about, oh, I remember a picture on the fridge, or I remember the greeting card at Christmas, or whatever it is, but it hasn't necessarily translated into donations to the library. But I think, again, you know, in terms of the digital experience, lots of people sharing, like me, lots of their own ephemera with us, which I think is really exciting. Lots of family photos, lots of, proud memories. I think there's a question at the back
Up
too.
the back.
How you going? I'm not trying to cause you any more work. But have you looked at where you do have a series of photos of houses next to each other, knitting them together to create like your Google Street View of that time?
Yeah. Yes, we have, but we chose not to. But you can through, partly the issue with that is just getting kind of a clean set of photos that are a continuous line. There are small sections within the collection where there are strings of houses that you could do that too. But if you just, the issue was that Frank is not a very good photographer. And we know this, I mean, that's an okay photograph, but having talked to a lot of people in industry, it's actually Eunice who is an exceptional darkroom operator.
Nice.
So that's part of the issue. But you can, through the Callie Explorer, when you go to the Places tab and you look at a spool, where there are kind of large sections of houses in a row, it does display them in order of the photograph being taken. Yeah.
Time for one more.
Oh, Serena, my colleague.
I know that some of the identification of the addresses of the houses is being added into the catalogue. I care about the catalogue. Are the stories being captured for perpetuity in the collection?
Yep. Yes, but I think to build on this morning's keynote, what's happening is a curatorial process around those stories. So I can probably just go like real time here very quickly, which Anna Raunick also encouraged me to do. So in the stories, except for the internet, there are a lot of heritage architects who are spending a lot of time locating a lot of houses and kind of detailing either kind of a top-down view or different information. So a lot of the stories, they're probably not the personal stories as much as they're just kind of a house history. So I know that our colleagues in Queensland Memory are kind of working through the list, curating stories and the photographs that go along with it, and then they'll be added to the collection record as the next step. I care about the collection record catalogue as well. I just don't know much about it.
Would you please join me in thanking Adam for his wonderful presentation?